Universal terror analysts discovered humans became apex predators through sheer spite. Part 1. Dr. Ara sat at her workstation and stared at the file that had just landed in her queue. The Galactic Threat Assessment Bureau didn't make mistakes. For 3,000 cycles, they had every dangerous species in known space. Every predator, every threat, every creature that other species needed to fear. The station orbited Prime, a neutral world where 83 different species sent their best analysts to study danger. Ara had worked here for 20 cycles. She had 4 eyes, each one capable of seeing different light spectrums. Her people, the Ossians, were known for their precision and attention to detail. She had never encountered a file she couldn't understand. Until now. The file was labeled Humanity Threat Assessment Required. She opened it and began reading the basic biological data. Humans had no claws, their teeth were flat and dull. They had no venom, no natural armor, no ability to change colors or phase through walls. Their bite force was weak compared to most predators. They couldn't run very fast. Their senses were average at best. Ara checked the file again. This had to be wrong. These creatures sounded like prey animals, maybe mid-tier at best, the kind of species that survived by hiding or running away. But then she saw the territorial holdings. 12 star systems, full control, no disputes. She saw the military record. 43 conflicts with other species, 43 victories, 0 defeats. She saw the diplomatic notes. Every species that had encountered humans early in their space-faring days now had the same response when humans were mentioned. The translation software flagged it over and over. Primal fear response. Ara leaned back in her chair. Her primary eyes focused on the screen while her secondary eyes scanned the room, a nervous habit from her prey species ancestry. Something was very wrong with this file. She decided to start with the recent incidents. The Bureau always kept detailed records of conflicts. She pulled up the most recent encounter between humans and another species. 6 cycles ago, a raiding party had attacked a human mining station in the Outer Rim. There were apex predators from a heavy-gravity world. They had razor-sharp claws, armored skin, and they hunted in packs with terrifying coordination. They had conquered 40 worlds. The human mining station had 23 people, no military presence, just civilian miners with basic security equipment. They had a warship. Ara read the report carefully. The humans had sent out a distress signal. They had tried to negotiate. They had refused. They wanted the mineral deposits and they wanted the humans gone. What happened next made Ara's blood run cold. The humans didn't surrender. They didn't evacuate. Instead, they armed every mining charge they had. They placed them throughout the asteroid. Then they sent one final message to the ship. If you land, we all die together. The thought it was a bluff, they landed. The humans detonated the charges. The entire asteroid collapsed. All 23 humans died. So did the entire raiding party. The asteroid became a tomb of crushed rock and metal, with bodies from both species mixed together in the debris. Ara read the line again. The humans had children at that mining station. Families. They had killed themselves, their own children, just to take the enemy with them. They never raided human territory again. She pulled up another file. This one was older, from when humans first entered space. A human colony ship had been attacked by pirates. The pirates had superior weapons and numbers. They demanded the colony ship surrender and turn over all valuable cargo. The human captain had refused. The pirates had damaged the engines. The colony ship couldn't run or fight. So the humans had vented their cargo bay. They opened it to space while crew members were still inside, working the mechanisms. 3 crew members died in the vacuum. The cargo scattered into space. The pirates got nothing. The human captain's final message was in the file. You get nothing from us. Nothing. Ara felt her tertiary eyes begin to twitch, another nervous habit. She pulled up more files, more incidents. The pattern was always the same. A human research station facing orbital bombardment had overloaded their reactor. They destroyed themselves and took out 3 enemy ships in the blast. A human patrol ship, and damaged, had rammed an enemy cruiser at full speed rather than surrender. Both ships were destroyed. A human colony, surrounded by ground forces, had poisoned their own water supply rather than let the enemy take the resources. Every single incident ended the same way. The humans lost, but they made sure the enemy lost worse. Ara tried to understand the psychology. She pulled up the assessment software and input the behavior patterns. The computer analyzed for several minutes. Then it returned an error message. Unable to classify. Pattern does not match known survival behaviors. She tried again with different parameters. The computer flagged one word over and over: spite. Spite, not aggression, not territorial defense, not even survival instinct. Spite. The willingness to harm yourself if it meant harming your enemy worse. Ara had studied hundreds of predator species. None of them behaved this way. Predators wanted to survive. They fought when the odds were good. They retreated when the odds were bad. They protected their young above all else. They valued their own lives. Humans seemed to value spite more than survival. She stood up from her workstation and walked to the viewing window. Outside, the stars stretched in every direction. Somewhere out there, humans were living on their 12 worlds, building their ships, raising their families. They looked harmless. Their biology said they should be harmless. But they weren't. Ara returned to her desk and opened a new section of the file. If she wanted to understand humans, she needed to understand where they came from. She requested historical data from Earth, the human. The Bureau had extensive files. Humans had been very willing to share their history, perhaps too willing. She started reading and felt her scales begin to itch with discomfort. Earth was classified as a death world, not the worst category but close. It had extreme weather, dangerous predators, diseases, and natural disasters. Humans had evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill them. But that wasn't unusual. Many species came from harsh worlds. What was unusual was how humans had responded. She found records of early human history. Before they had technology or civilization, humans had survived alongside creatures that could kill them easily. Giant predators, venomous creatures, pack hunters. Humans should have gone extinct. Instead, they had hunted the predators back. The files showed something called persistence hunting. Early humans would chase an animal for days, not fast chasing, slow chasing. They would track the animal and follow it and never stop following it. Eventually, the animal would collapse from exhaustion. Then the humans would kill it. Ara read the description 3 times. It seemed impossible. What kind of predator wore down its prey through sheer stubbornness? She found records of early human warfare, humans fighting other humans. She expected to see battles for resources or territory. Instead, she found something the translation software labeled as vendettas. Humans would fight each other for generations over insults, over pride, over spite. One human group would attack another. The survivors would spend years planning revenge. They would attack back. Then the other side would seek revenge. The cycle would continue for decades, sometimes centuries. They kept fighting even when it ruined both sides. Ara's primary hands began to shake slightly. She took a moment to calm herself, then continued reading. She found records of human advancement, their technology, their science. Every breakthrough seemed to come from spite toward limitations. Couldn't breathe underwater. They invented submarines to spite the ocean. Couldn't fly. They built aircraft to spite gravity. Couldn't survive in space. They went anyway to spite the very concept of impossibility. Their space program had started because 2 human nations were spiteful toward each other. They raced to space not because they needed to, but because they refused to let the other side get there first. Ara found records of human weapons. The progression was terrifying. Sharper spears, better bows, guns, bombs, chemical weapons, biological weapons. Then she found the nuclear weapons files. Humans had built weapons that could destroy their entire planet. They had built thousands of them. They had pointed them at each other. The Cold War, they called it. Humans had spent decades ready to annihilate themselves just to make sure the other side couldn't win. Mutual assured destruction, that was their strategy. If I lose, everyone loses. Ara closed the file and sat in silence. The station hummed around her. Other analysts worked at their stations, unaware of what she had discovered. Humans hadn't become apex predators by being strong. They had become apex predators by being too spiteful to die. And if they had to die, they would take you with them. She thought about the mining station, the colony ship, the research station. Every incident made sense now. Humans would rather destroy themselves than give their enemy satisfaction. They had weaponized their own mortality. Ara knew she had to finish the report. The Bureau needed to know. Every species needed to know. Humans were dangerous, not despite being weak but because of it. Every limitation made them more spiteful, more determined, more willing to pay any cost. She pulled up a new document and began to write. Her report would change everything. Part 2. Ara worked through the night cycle. Her colleagues left the station for rest, but she remained at her workstation, diving deeper into the human files. She had already discovered the pattern of spite. Now she needed to understand how deep it went. She pulled up human cultural records. Every species had stories and myths. Ara had studied thousands of them. Most followed similar patterns. Heroes who were strong, heroes who were smart, heroes who had special powers. Human heroes were different. She found a story about a human named Prometheus. He had stolen fire from the gods to give to humanity. The gods had punished him by chaining him to a rock where an eagle would eat his liver every day. The liver would grow back each night, and the eagle would eat it again the next day. Forever. Prometheus never apologized, never begged for mercy. He stayed chained to that rock, spiteful to the end. Humans told this story to their children as an example of heroism. She found another story, a human soldier at a place called Thermopylae. 300 soldiers had faced an army of thousands. They knew they would die. They fought anyway. They held the enemy for days, long enough for their people to prepare. All 300 died. Humans celebrated this. They built monuments to it. She found story after story. Humans surrounded by zombies, fighting to the last bullet. Humans on sinking ships, going down with the vessel rather than abandon their post. Humans facing impossible odds, saying, "You shall not pass," and meaning it. Their heroes didn't win through strength. They won through refusing to quit, even when quitting was the only rational choice. Ara noticed something else in the cultural files. Humans had phrases, sayings they repeated to each other. She compiled a list. Never give up, never surrender. Die on your feet rather than live on your knees. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. Scorched earth. Over my dead body. Victory or death. Every single phrase was about spite, about refusing to yield, about making the enemy pay even if it cost everything. She found military records from human wars, humans fighting each other before they went to space. The tactics were disturbing. Something called scorched earth policy. When one human army retreated, they would burn everything behind them, crops, buildings, bridges. They would destroy their own land just to deny it to the enemy. She found records of sieges where trapped humans had eaten their own leather boots rather than surrender. She found records of battles where humans had fought with broken weapons, then bare hands, then teeth when they had nothing else left. One battle report described human soldiers with multiple fatal wounds who had continued fighting for several minutes before their bodies understood they were already dead. Ara felt ill. Her species were peaceful herbivores. They had never been warriors, but she had studied many warrior species for the Bureau. None of them fought like this. They would retreat if casualties got too high. They would phase away if a battle turned against them. The Inn would use their telepathy to ensure they only fought battles they could win. Humans fought battles they couldn't win all the time. They seemed to prefer it. She dug into human medical records. She wanted to understand their biology better. Maybe there was something in their chemistry that explained this behavior. She found that humans had unusual pain tolerance. They could function with injuries that would incapacitate most species. Broken bones, deep wounds, burns. Humans could keep moving. They also had something called an adrenaline response. When threatened, their bodies would flood with chemicals that let them ignore pain, think faster, move harder. A survival mechanism. But humans had learned to trigger it deliberately. They sought out danger. They jumped out of aircraft for fun. They climbed mountains that could kill them. They called it extreme sports and did it for entertainment. They had turned their fear response into recreation. Ara found psychological studies. Human brains were wired for pattern recognition and problem solving, but they also had strong emotional centers. Humans felt anger, fear, love, and spite with intensity that most species couldn't match. The studies showed that humans would make irrational decisions when emotions were involved. They would sacrifice resources, health, even their lives for emotional satisfaction. Revenge was the most powerful motivator. Humans would pursue revenge even when it harmed them, even when it served no practical purpose. A human whose family was killed might spend years hunting the killer. They would give up everything for it: career, safety, other relationships. The revenge mattered more than their own. She found a human word: vendetta, a blood feud that could last generations. Ara pulled up economic records. She wanted to see if spite affected human trade and business. It did. She found cases where human businesses had deliberately operated at a loss just to drive a competitor out of the market. They called it predatory pricing. They would lose money for months or years, burning through resources just to make the other business fail. Pure spite. She found records of human labor disputes. Workers would strike, refusing to work even when it meant losing their own income. They would rather starve than give in. She found records of human protests. Humans would chain themselves to buildings or trees to prevent destruction. They would let themselves be arrested, beaten, even killed rather than move. Economic irrationality, driven by spite and principle. Ara started compiling data for her report. She organized everything into categories: biology, psychology, history, culture. Every category showed the same pattern. Humans had evolved spite into a survival strategy. She pulled up comparative data from other species. The Bureau had psychological profiles for thousands of species. She ran the human data through the comparison algorithms. The results were clear. Humans ranked in the bottom quarter for physical capabilities, bottom third for sensory capabilities, middle range for intelligence. But for willingness to accept harm to inflict harm, humans were off the scale. The algorithm couldn't find a comparable species. She tried different parameters: self-sacrificing behavior, revenge-seeking behavior, irrational persistence. Every category put humans at the extreme end. Ara sat back and thought about what this meant. The Bureau classified threats based on capability and intent. A species might have the capability to harm others but lack the intent, or they might have intent but lack capability. Humans had both. They had the technology to hurt you. They had weapons, ships, and industrial capacity, and they had the spite-driven psychology to use it all regardless of cost to themselves. But there was something else in the data, something that made this even more complicated. She pulled up human diplomatic records. Despite everything she had learned, humans were actually peaceful neighbors most of the time. They honored their treaties. They engaged in fair trade. They helped allies in need. Human civilization had rules, laws, ethics. They didn't just attack others randomly. But when someone broke those rules, the spite activated. She found a diplomatic incident from 10 cycles ago. A trade partner had cheated humans in a deal. Nothing violent, just economic fraud. The humans had lost resources but no lives. The human response had been calculated and devastating. They had used entirely legal methods, ended trade agreements, shifted diplomatic support, used economic pressure. Within 2 cycles, the cheating species had lost more than they had gained by a factor of 10. The humans had made an example of them. She found another case. A species had attacked a human diplomat, one diplomat. The attack had been unauthorized by that species' government. The attacker had acted alone. Humans had demanded the attacker be turned over for justice. The species had refused. Humans had imposed sanctions. They had convinced their allies to do the same. They had kept the pressure up for 8 cycles until the species' economy was collapsing. Finally, they had turned over the attacker. One diplomat, 8 cycles of economic warfare. Ara began to understand something crucial. Humans didn't want conflict. They preferred peace, but they had zero tolerance for betrayal, disrespect, or aggression. If you treated them fairly, they were generous and reliable. If you betrayed them, they would spend decades making you regret it. She thought about Earth again, the death world. Humans had spent millions of years evolving on a planet where everything was trying to kill them. Predators, weather, disease, other humans. They had survived by being too stubborn to die, and too spiteful to let anything kill them without a fight. That psychology had carried over into space. Humans approached the galaxy the same way they had approached Earth. Be friendly with friends. Be absolutely ruthless with enemies. Never ever give up. Ara started writing the main conclusion for her report. She chose her words carefully. This report would go to the Bureau Council. It would influence how every species dealt with humans going forward. She wrote, "Humans are apex predators not through superior evolution, but through weaponized spite. They have evolved to make victory against them cost more than any rational species is willing to pay. Standard threat assessment models do not apply." She added tactical recommendations: maintain fair dealings, honor agreements, show respect, never give humans a reason to become spiteful toward you. Because if you did, they would burn down their own worlds to burn down yours. She finished the draft and sent it to preliminary review. Then she stood and walked to the viewing window again. A human transport ship was docking at the station. She could see it through the window. It looked ordinary, clean lines, efficient design, nothing threatening. But now she knew what was inside that ship. Humans. Creatures who had climbed to the top of the food chain through sheer refusal to die quietly. Ara felt something she had never felt when looking at a ship before. Fear. Part 3. The Bureau Council chamber was designed to accommodate all 83 member species. The room was massive, with different atmospheric zones and gravity settings for different biological needs. Ara stood in the center speaking platform, her report displayed on screens throughout the chamber. She had spent 3 more cycles refining her research. Now she had to present it to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The council consisted of representatives from every major spacefaring civilization. Many of them were apex predators from their own worlds. The ambassador sat in the heavy gravity section, his armored bulk making the reinforced chair creak. The representative phased in and out of visibility in the low-pressure zone. The indelegate's telepathic presence pressed against everyone's minds like a weight. Ara began her presentation. Council members, I have completed the threat assessment for humanity. My findings require significant changes to how we classify and interact with this species. She pulled up the biological data first, the basic facts. No claws, no natural weapons, average senses, relatively weak bite force. The ambassador made a rumbling sound that the translator rendered as contemptuous laughter. These are prey animals, he said. Why are we wasting council time on this? Ara had expected this reaction. She pulled up the next screen. Humanity controls 12 star systems. They have never lost a war. Every species that has fought them either reached peace terms favorable to humans or no longer exists as a spacefaring civilization. The chamber fell quiet. She continued, I have identified the source of humanity's success. They have evolved a psychological trait that our assessment software cannot properly classify. The closest term is spite, the willingness to harm themselves if it means harming their enemy worse. She showed the incident reports, the mining station that collapsed the asteroid, the colony ship that vented its cargo, the research station that overloaded its reactor. In every conflict, humans demonstrate the same pattern. When faced with superior force, they do not surrender. They make victory so costly that the enemy never attempts it again. The ambassador shifted in his seat. Ara noticed. Ambassador, you are familiar with the mining station incident. The large predator's claws scraped against the armrest. The Terran incident, yes, we do not discuss it. Perhaps you should, Ara said gently. Your species are apex predators. You conquered 40 worlds through superior force, but you never raided human territory again after that incident. Why? The ambassador was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. The humans killed themselves, their own children. They chose death over submission. His claws retracted. My species understands hunting. We understand fighting for resources. We do not understand throwing away your own life just to spite your enemy. It is, he searched for the word, insane. It appears insane, Ara agreed. But it is effective. Your species learned that attacking humans would result in unacceptable losses even in victory. You changed your behavior based on that lesson. She moved to the next section of her report, Human History and Culture. Humanity evolved on a death world. For millions of years, they survived alongside predators that could easily kill them. They developed persistence as a survival strategy. They would chase prey for days. They would track predators that killed their tribe members and hunt those predators specifically. Revenge became a survival trait. She showed the cultural data, the stories, the heroes, the sayings. Human culture celebrates spite. They tell their children stories about heroes who refused to quit even when they were dying. They have dozens of phrases about never surrendering. This is not a cultural accident. This is evolutionary programming. The representative spoke, their voice echoing strangely from the low-pressure zone. If they are so bent on violence, why have they not attacked anyone recently? Our records show humans have been peaceful for the last 6 cycles. Ara had been hoping someone would ask that question. Because humans do not want conflict. They prefer peace, but they have zero tolerance for betrayal or aggression. If you treat them fairly, they are generous and reliable. If you betray them, they will make you regret it for generations. She pulled up the diplomatic records, the trade fraud case, the diplomat attack. Notice the pattern. In both cases, humans were wronged. In both cases, their response was calculated and devastating. They did not act impulsively. They used legal, diplomatic, and economic methods, but they did not stop until the other party had paid a price far exceeding the original offense. The indelegate's telepathic voice resonated in everyone's minds. You are saying they are vindictive. I am saying they have long memories and they value justice over practicality, Ara corrected. A human who is wronged will pursue compensation even when it is economically irrational. They will sacrifice resources, time, and opportunities just to ensure the other party does not benefit from betrayal. She brought up the final section of her report, recommendations. Traditional threat assessment is based on capability and intent. We measure whether a species can harm us and whether they want to harm us. Humans present a unique challenge. They have the capability to cause significant harm, but their intent is conditional. She highlighted the key paragraph. Humans do not start conflicts, but they will finish them. The optimal strategy is simple: be their friend, not their enemy. Maintain fair dealings, honor agreements, show respect. Never give humans a reason to become spiteful toward you. The council chamber erupted in discussion. Multiple species tried to speak at once. The moderator called for order. The ambassador spoke first. You are recommending we treat them as equals. They are physically weak. They have no natural weapons. By what right do they demand such treatment? Ara met his eyes. All four of her eyes focused on him. By the right of making anyone who disrespects them pay dearly for it. Ambassador, your species understands strength. You conquered 40 worlds, but you will not attack humans again. That is their power. Not the strength to conquer, but the spite to make conquest meaningless. A smaller species from the aquatic section spoke up. What if we simply avoid them? No trade, no contact, no chance for conflict. That is one strategy, Ara agreed. But consider what you lose. Humans are innovative. Their technology advances quickly because they spite limitations. They are productive. Their economy is robust. They are loyal allies. If you avoid them, you miss opportunities. If you befriend them, you gain a reliable partner who will defend you as fiercely as they defend themselves. The representative spoke again. And if we cannot be friends, if our interests conflict? Ara pulled up one final report. It was from a human philosopher, someone named Sun. Humans have studied war for thousands of years. They have a saying: if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Humans know themselves very well. They know they will fight to the last breath. They know they will take you with them, and they make sure you know it too. She closed the file. The question the council must answer is this: do we want humanity as an ally or an enemy? Because those are the only two options. Humans do not do neutrality well. They remember who helped them and who stood aside. They remember who betrayed them, and they never, ever forget. The council chamber fell silent again. Ara could see the representatives considering her words. Some looked thoughtful, some looked concerned. The ambassador looked troubled. Finally, the council moderator spoke. The council will vote on the classification. Dr. Ara, you recommend humanity be classified as what threat level? Ara had thought carefully about this. The Bureau had 5 threat levels. Level 5 was extinction-level threats. Level 1 was species that posed no danger. I recommend Apex-class civilization, not because they are the most powerful species, but because they have made themselves too costly to fight. They have weaponized their own mortality. Any species that attacks them will win only Pyrrhic victories. Pyrrhic, the moderator asked. A human term, Ara explained. A victory that costs so much that it might as well be a defeat. Humans have dozens of words for this concept because they inflict it constantly. The vote was called. 83 species considered the classification. The results came back quickly. Unanimous approval. Humanity was now classified as an apex-class civilization. A formal Bureau directive would be issued. All member species would be informed. The recommendation was clear: maintain fair and respectful relations with humanity. The council adjourned. Representatives filed out of the chamber discussing the implications. Ara gathered her materials. The ambassador approached her. Up close, he was even more intimidating. His claws could tear through her body like paper, his teeth could crush her skull. But he spoke quietly, almost gently. "You have done the galaxy a service, Dr. Ara. Better to know this now than learn it through more incidents." He paused. "My species respects strength. We understand now that humans have a different kind of strength. We will not test it again." He left. Ara was alone in the chamber. She looked at the screens one more time. The human biological data was still displayed. Weak bite force, no claws, average senses. But none of that mattered. Humans had proven that physical weakness was irrelevant if you were too spiteful to quit. Ara thought about Earth, the death world where humans had evolved. They had faced extinction countless times, predators, ice ages, volcanoes, plagues, wars. They had survived all of it through sheer refusal to die. Now they were in space, and they had brought that spite with them. She closed the files and left the chamber. As she walked through the station corridors, she passed a group of human traders. They were laughing about something, sharing food, completely relaxed. They looked harmless. Ara knew better now. A few days later, the Bureau directive went out to all member species. The message was simple and clear. Humanity has been classified as apex-class civilization. Recommended interaction protocol: maintain fair, respectful relations. Do not betray agreements. Do not show disrespect. Do not give humans reason for spite-driven response. Humans make reliable allies and devastating enemies. Choose wisely. The directive included one final note, added by Ara. Humans became apex predators not through evolution, but through spite. They climbed to the top of the food chain by making every enemy regret fighting them. They have weaponized their own mortality. The only defense is to never attack them in the first place. The galaxy learned its lesson. Humans continued to expand peacefully, trading fairly, honoring agreements. They made allies easily because species learned that humans were generous friends. But everyone remembered the mining station, the colony ship, the research station. Everyone remembered that humans would rather die than lose. And that made all the difference. Ara filed her final report and moved on to other assignments, but she never forgot the humans. Sometimes she would see their ships docking at the station. Ordinary ships full of ordinary-looking creatures. Apex predators who hunted with spite instead of claws. The most dangerous kind.